The sun hung low over the quiet village, painting the sky with strokes of orange and gold. Dust rose from the narrow road as an old pickup truck rumbled to life. Beside it stood Mama Grace, a frail woman in a faded blue wrapper, her wrinkled hands clutching the edge of her shawl. She tried to smile, though her lips trembled. Her only son, Michael, stood by the truck door, clean-shaven and neatly dressed in a crisp white shirt. The city already showed in his posture, his shoulders square, his eyes cold with determination. "Don't worry, Mama," he said, his tone light but distant. "I'll send money every month. You'll see. This job is just the beginning." Mama Grace nodded slowly. "My son, I am proud of you. But remember, a tree that forgets its roots will one day fall." Michael forced a smile. "Mama, please, not now. You'll be fine here." She reached into the pocket of her wrapper and pulled out a small hand-woven bracelet, made of colorful threads. It looked old-fashioned, something a child would make. "I made this for you," she said softly. "For protection. Wherever you go, let it remind you that you are never alone." Michael hesitated. He didn't want to take it. It looked too rural, too plain. But under her hopeful gaze, he sighed and slipped it into his pocket. "Thank you, Mama," he said quickly, turning away. She stepped closer, her voice trembling. "Michael, promise me you'll visit. Even when the city lights call you, promise you'll come back." He avoided her eyes. "I'll come when I can." And with that, he climbed into the truck, the engine roaring to life. Mama Grace stood still, her heart heavy, watching as the dust swallowed the sound of her son's departure. She waved until the truck disappeared beyond the hills, her hand trembling in the fading light. When the road grew silent again, she whispered to the wind, "God, keep my boy safe, and remind him where home is." Scene transition. The city dream. The city was nothing like the village. It was alive, noisy, and cruel. Tall buildings reached into the sky like symbols of success. Michael stood in the middle of it all, suitcase in hand, eyes wide with ambition. He had done it. He had left the dirt roads behind. No more carrying firewood. No more hearing villagers gossip about his late father. Here, he would make a name for himself. At his new office, the people were sharp, polished, and fast-talking. They spoke of investments, luxury cars, and foreign vacations. When they asked about his family, Michael said little. "My parents passed long ago," he lied once, his voice steady. It was easier than explaining that his mother still cooked on a firewood stove and fetched water from the river. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. Michael's career blossomed quickly. His boss admired his dedication. His colleagues envied his focus. He rented a small apartment in the city and filled it with things his mother would never understand. A shiny microwave, leather shoes, perfume bottles that cost more than her monthly food. But success came with silence. He stopped calling home. Mama Grace's voice would echo through the line, soft and patient. "My son, are you eating well? Do you still pray? Will you come home soon?" Each time his answers grew shorter. "Yes, Mama." "I'm busy, Mama." "Later, Mama." Eventually, the calls stopped. Scene transition. The hidden shame won. Sunday evening, Michael joined his new friends at a rooftop restaurant overlooking the city. They were all laughing, sipping expensive drinks, talking about their childhoods. "Where did you grow up, Michael?" one of them asked. He froze. "Just a small town," he replied quickly. His friend smirked. "A village boy? Look at you now. Can't even tell from the way you talk." The table erupted in laughter. Michael laughed too, though it hurt inside. He raised his glass, pretending it didn't matter. But that night, when he got home, he found the bracelet Mama Grace had made him still tucked inside his drawer. He stared at it for a long time, then slammed it shut. He told himself he was doing the right thing. He was building a future for both of them. But in truth, he was running from where he came from, running from the woman who gave him everything, running from the shame of remembering. Scene transition, the final goodbye months. Later, Michael returned to the village only in dreams. In one, he saw Mama Grace standing by the roadside again, waving at him as before. But this time, her hand never dropped. It just stayed frozen mid-air, as if waiting for something that would never come. When he woke, the city lights outside his window flickered like stars he could never touch. He told himself the past didn't matter anymore. He was doing fine, but deep down, in the quiet corners of his soul, he knew something was missing. Something pure, something true. He had traded love for ambition, roots for reputation, and though he didn't know it yet, life was already preparing to force him back. The city had become Michael's kingdom. Glass towers replaced the tall palm trees of his childhood. The hum of car engines drowned out the sound of crickets and night winds he once knew. Every morning he dressed sharply. Clean suits, polished shoes, a gold wristwatch that gleamed under the office lights. The village boy was gone. What remained was a man who spoke with confidence, carried himself with power, and walked as if he belonged among the city's elite. He had secured a high-paying job at a large firm. His bosses called him promising. His co-workers admired his ambition. Within a year, he was promoted, earning more than he ever dreamed possible. But beneath all the glitter of success, something inside him stayed hollow. A quiet emptiness he refused to acknowledge. Scene 1. The new life Michael's apartment overlooked the city skyline. Glass walls, soft couches, expensive furniture, the kind of home that screamed arrival. On a Friday evening, he threw a small celebration. His co-workers filled the room with laughter and music. They toasted to his promotion, praising his dedication and hustle. One of them, a sleek young woman named Vanessa, leaned close and said, "You've come a long way, Michael. I can't imagine you ever being poor." Michael smiled, forcing a laugh. "Yeah, that was another life." The others laughed along, but a small part of him burned with shame. In his mind flashed the image of Mama Grace, sitting on a wooden stool outside their mud house, pounding maize, humming softly to herself. He pushed the thought away. "This is who I am now," he told himself. "I worked for this." But even amid the laughter and flashing lights, something about the city's beauty felt artificial, like wearing a borrowed suit that never truly fit. Scene 2. The illusion of success days turned into months, and Michael's life became a cycle of work, meetings, and appearances. He learned to talk like the people around him, sharp, calculated, polished. He laughed at their jokes. He drank their wine. But late at night, when he stood by his apartment window, staring down at the glowing city, a quiet guilt whispered in his chest. Sometimes, he would scroll through his phone and see a missed call from Mama Grace. He would sigh, then turn the phone face down. "I'll call her tomorrow," he'd say. Tomorrow rarely came. At the office, his friends often teased him about his roots. "Michael, you probably grew up chasing chickens, huh? Bet your mom still cooks on a firewood stove." They laughed. He laughed too, but each laugh felt heavier than the last. Every time they mocked his past, he died a little more inside. Yet he never defended her. He was too afraid of being seen as less than them. That night, as he undressed, the bracelet Mama Grace had given him slipped from the drawer. He picked it up, staring at its colorful threads. The fabric had started to fade, but her touch seemed to live within it. For a brief moment, he thought of calling her, just to hear her voice. But pride won again. He tossed the bracelet back into the drawer and shut it hard. Scene 3. Forgotten Love Mama. Grace still called. Sometimes her gentle voice echoed through the phone, "My son, are you eating? Don't skip your prayers." Or, "I'm keeping your room ready, just the way you left it." Her love never changed, but Michael's replies grew shorter, colder. "I'm fine, Mama." "Yes, I'm busy. I'll visit soon." He didn't notice the sadness in her voice, the pauses between her words. He didn't hear how she always ended her calls with a quiet sigh, the sound of a heart missing what it raised. Scene 4. The letter one morning, as Michael prepared for work. The doorman handed him a small, wrinkled envelope. The handwriting on it was shaky but familiar. It was from Mama Grace. He sat down and opened it slowly. Inside was a short letter written in blue ink. "My dear son, I hope you are well. Every day, I thank God for you. I tell the neighbors how successful you've become. I pray for you every night, that the world will be kind and your heart will stay good. Your room is still waiting, clean and ready, for the day you come home. With love, Mama." Michael's chest tightened. Her words felt heavy, pure, forgiving, undeserved. But before the guilt could reach his heart, he folded the letter sharply and tossed it into the trash bin. He stood there for a long time, staring at the bin, trying to convince himself it meant nothing. Scene 5. The shadow of guilt. That night, Michael couldn't sleep. The laughter of his co-workers rang in his head. The sound of Mama Grace's voice clashed with the city noise outside. He turned in bed, restless. He told himself he was building a better life for both of them, that his success would one day justify the distance. But deep down, he knew the truth. He wasn't running for success. He was running from shame. And though the world now called him Sir, he had never felt smaller. Closing scene. The forgotten bracelet. The next morning, Michael stood before the mirror, adjusting his tie. His reflection looked sharp, powerful, unbothered. Yet, behind the confident man in the glass, another image flickered. A boy in torn shorts, standing beside his mother, holding a basket of corn. He blinked, and it vanished. As he reached for his watch, he noticed the bracelet again in the drawer. Untouched. Waiting. For a moment his hand hovered over it. Then he pulled away. He shut the drawer. He shut the memory. He shut his heart. But in the silence that followed, a whisper seemed to rise from somewhere deep inside. Gentle, patient, and sad. A tree that forgets its roots will one day fall. Michael didn't hear it yet, but fate was already listening. The city that once embraced Michael with open arms began to turn cold. What once felt like a kingdom now felt like a maze. Endless meetings, false smiles, and silent enemies. It started subtly. A project delay, a missed deadline, whispers in the hallway. Then came the storm. Scene 1. The crack in the mirror. Michael arrived at work one morning, confident as always. The elevator doors opened to an eerie silence. Colleagues who once greeted him now avoided his eyes. He walked to his desk and found an email waiting. The subject line, "Urgent, Audit Review Meeting, 2 p.m. At first, he brushed it off. But the tension in the office was thick, suffocating. By noon, he received a message from his manager. "Michael, please bring all your files regarding the recent project. We have some concerns." His pulse quickened. In the glass reflection beside him, he saw a face he barely recognized. The confident man was gone. In his place stood someone uncertain, cornered. At the meeting, 3 senior executives sat across from him. Their faces were stiff. "Michael," one said, "we've found irregularities in the budget allocations you approved. Missing funds, false entries. Care to explain?" His throat went dry. "That's impossible. I handled everything by the book. But the evidence on the screen said otherwise. Numbers, signatures, transactions, all leading back to him. Someone had set him up, but no one cared." Scene 2. The fall from grace, the news spread through the office like wildfire. Whispers followed him in the corridors. Did you hear? Michael's under investigation. They say he stole from the company. The man who once stood above them now walked with eyes on the floor. Days later, he was suspended pending investigation. Security escorted him out, his badge taken, his desk emptied into a small cardboard box. As he left the building, the city lights that once glittered with promise now felt like judgmental eyes watching him fall. That night, he sat alone in his apartment, the silence louder than ever. The city noise outside didn't comfort him anymore. He reached for a drink, then another, and another. In the corner of the room, the bracelet Mama Grace had made peeked out from the drawer, as if silently watching him drown in his pride. Scene 3. The unraveling weeks turned into months. Michael's reputation was ruined. No one wanted to hire a man accused of theft, even if he claimed innocence. He sold his furniture, then his car. Soon, his apartment became bare, walls echoing with memories of laughter that no longer existed. One evening, as rain hammered the windows, his phone rang. It was an unknown number. "Michael," a calm voice said, "this is your landlord. You've missed 3 months' rent. You have until next week to move out." He hung up and stared blankly at the wall. Everything he built was slipping through his fingers. For the first time in years, he thought of home, of Mama Grace's voice, her laughter, her cooking. He remembered how she used to say, "No matter how high the bird flies, it must come down to drink water." He wanted to call her, but what would he say? "Mama, I failed?" The shame was heavier than his hunger. Scene 4. The news from home one morning, Michael received a message from a neighbor back in the village. "Michael, your mother has been sick. She asks about you every day. Please come." His heart froze. He wanted to believe it was nothing serious, just a fever maybe. Mama was strong. She always had been. But days later, another message came. "She's getting weaker. She calls your name in her sleep." Michael sat in silence. His chest burned with regret. He tried to call, but the number was unreachable. The network in the village was often poor. He sent money, hoping it would help. But deep down, he knew what she needed wasn't money. It was him. Scene 5. The storm. Within one night, the rain returned, fierce, unrelenting. Michael stood by the window, drenched in thoughts he couldn't escape. He saw his reflection again. But this time, it wasn't the man in the suit. It was the boy who used to run barefoot beside his mother, laughing as they fetched water from the stream. The memory broke him. He fell to his knees, clutching his chest, tears mixing with the sound of thunder outside. "God, what have I done?" he whispered. He thought about the letter he had thrown away, the one filled with her love and prayers. He thought about all the times he ignored her calls, her words, her care. The bracelet caught his eye again. He picked it up slowly, trembling. For the first time in years, he wore it around his wrist. It fit perfectly, as if it had been waiting for this moment. Scene 6. The journey. Home by morning, the decision was made. He packed what little he had left into a small bag. No car, no luxury, just a man and his remorse. He boarded a bus heading back to the village. The road was long and dusty, lined with fields that stretched endlessly under the sun. With every mile, memories resurfaced. Mama Grace waving goodbye at the old wooden gate, her smile full of pride and love. Now, he wondered if she would still smile when she saw him again, or if he had waited too long. As the bus rolled through the countryside, he saw children running beside the road, their laughter echoing like ghosts of his past. He felt tears rise, but didn't wipe them away. He didn't deserve that comfort. Closing scene. The silent gate. When the bus stopped near the village, Michael stepped out. The air was different, calm, pure, filled with the scent of earth and rain. He walked the narrow path to the house, his heart pounding. The same wooden gate stood before him, worn by years but still standing strong, just like Mama had been. He hesitated, his hand trembling as he pushed it open. Inside, an elderly woman from the neighborhood saw him and gasped, "Michael, you're back." Her eyes softened, but her voice broke when she said, "Your mother has been waiting for you." Michael's lips parted, his heart sinking. "Is she?" The woman looked down. "She's been asking for you, but you must hurry." He dropped his bag and ran, down the path, past the mango tree, toward the small house that once felt like the whole world. And as the door came into view, the sound of his heartbeat drowned out everything else. The path to his mother's house felt longer than ever before. Each step was heavy, dragging memories out of the soil. The laughter, the scolding, the prayers whispered over his head before bed. The house stood small and quiet at the edge of the village, its mud walls cracked but still upright, stubbornly resisting time. The sound of birds filled the air, gentle, mournful. Michael's heart pounded as he approached the door. He paused for a moment. The last time he was here, the world had felt too small for his dreams. Now, after everything he'd lost, the same world felt too large for his shame. He raised his hand and knocked. Once, twice. The door creaked open. Inside, a woman sat on a small wooden chair beside a bed. It was Mama Grace's neighbor, Auntie Nuru, the same woman who had helped raise him as a boy. Her eyes widened when she saw him. "Michael," she whispered, a mix of surprise and sorrow in her voice. "You finally came." He tried to speak, but his throat closed. Where is she?" Auntie Nuru stepped aside. "Inside. But my son—" Her voice faltered. "She's not as strong as she used to be." Michael walked slowly into the dim room. The air was thick with the scent of herbs and old prayers. A candle flickered on a wooden stool, its light dancing across the walls. And there she was, Mama Grace, lying on a thin mattress, her body frail, her breathing shallow. The once vibrant woman who had sung while cooking, who had walked miles to fetch water, now looked like a shadow of herself. For a long moment, Michael just stood there, frozen. He wanted to run to her, to fall to his knees and beg forgiveness, but his feet wouldn't move. Finally he whispered, his voice trembling, "Mama." Her eyelids fluttered. Slowly she turned her head. When her tired eyes met his, something shifted in the room. Time, guilt, love, all collapsing into silence. She smiled faintly. "Michael, my boy." Tears blurred his vision. He stumbled to her side, kneeling beside the bed. "Mama, I'm so sorry," he said, the words breaking out of him like years of chained pain. "I should have come sooner. I should never have left you alone." Her thin hand trembled as she reached for him. "You came," she whispered. "That's what matters." He shook his head. "No, Mama. I left you. I forgot where I came from. I thought the city made me better, but it only made me hollow." She smiled weakly. "The world teaches in strange ways, my son. Sometimes we must be lost to remember the way home." Her voice cracked. Michael gently held her hand against his cheek, feeling the warmth fading but still alive. "I failed you," he whispered. "I thought money, success, all that would make me proud. But I was wrong. I would trade everything just to sit by this fire again, to hear your stories, to eat your food." Mama Grace's eyes glistened. "You are my pride, Michael, not because of what you had, but because you came back." Scene 2. The Bond Reborn. For the next few days, Michael stayed by her side. He cooked her meals, fetched water from the stream, and cleaned the house, the same chores he once ran from. At night, he would sit by her bed and listen to her stories, ones he had heard 100 times before, but never truly listened to. One evening, as the sky turned violet and the crickets began to sing, Mama Grace spoke softly. "You see, my son, the city gives you things, but it doesn't give you peace." Michael nodded. "I know that now, Mama," she smiled faintly. "When you left, I prayed every night. I didn't pray for your wealth. I prayed for your heart." He looked down, tears falling silently. "You never gave up on me." "A mother never does." He reached into his pocket and took out the bracelet she had made him years ago. The threads were frayed, but still strong. "I kept it," he said softly, "even when I didn't deserve it." Her eyes lit up. "That means you never truly left." He placed it around her wrist, gently. "No, Mama, I just lost my way." Scene 3. The Unspoken Goodbye. That night, the wind whispered through the cracks in the wall, carrying the smell of rain. Mama Grace lay resting peacefully, her breathing slow and steady. Michael sat beside her, watching the candlelight flicker on her face. He wanted to stay awake, afraid that if he closed his eyes, she might disappear. She stirred and whispered, "Michael." He leaned closer. "Yes, Mama?" Her lips curved into a faint smile. "When I am gone, promise me you will forgive yourself. Don't carry guilt, carry love." Tears welled in his eyes. "Don't talk like that, Mama. You're not going anywhere." She chuckled weakly. "Every mother leaves one day, but our love doesn't." Her hand squeezed his one last time. "You came back. That's enough for my soul." He wanted to speak, but the words died in his throat. He watched her eyelids grow heavy again, her breathing softening, each breath lighter than the last. He whispered, "I love you, Mama. I always have." And for the first time in years, peace filled the little room, gentle, sacred, final. Scene 4. The morning after. When the first light of dawn crept through the window, Michael woke to silence. The birds were singing outside, but the room was still, too still. He turned to her. Mama Grace lay motionless, her face calm, her hand still wearing the bracelet he had given back. For a long moment, he couldn't move. Then, slowly, he knelt beside her, his tears falling onto her hands. He didn't scream. He didn't wail. He just sat there, a son holding the silence his mother left behind. Outside, the village began to wake. Neighbors came quietly, offering comfort, prayers, and tears of their own. Auntie Nuru placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "She waited for you, Michael. She knew you'd come." Michael nodded, his voice trembling. "She always knew more than I did." Scene 5. The burial. The funeral was small, simple, just as Mama Grace would have wanted. Beneath the old mango tree, they laid her to rest, the same tree under which she had once told him stories about faith and forgiveness. As they covered her grave with the final handfuls of earth, Michael stood in silence, the bracelet now back on his wrist, the symbol of everything he had forgotten and found again. He whispered to the wind, "Thank you, Mama, for not giving up on me." A breeze swept through the field, rustling the leaves above. It felt like an answer, soft, forgiving, eternal. The air was heavy with quiet grief. The small house that once echoed with Mama Grace's laughter now felt hollow, a place filled only with memories. Michael sat beside her empty bed, her blanket neatly folded, the faint scent of her herbs still lingering in the room. Every corner spoke of her. The basket she used for laundry, the small stool where she sat to peel cassava, the Bible with worn-out pages lying open on the table. He reached for it, and ran his fingers across the words she had underlined in faded ink. A mother's love endures all things. Tears welled in his eyes again, but this time they didn't come from guilt. They came from love, from a heart finally breaking open after years of pride and silence. Scene 1. The final days, in the days before her passing, Michael had hardly left her side. He had become her hands, her strength, her eyes. He cooked her meals, simple bowls of soup and porridge, just as she liked. He read to her in the evenings and brushed her hair gently while she spoke of the past. One afternoon, as the sun dipped low and the shadows stretched across the walls, she called him to her side. "Michael," she said softly, her voice trembling like the last notes of a song. "Do you remember the mango tree I planted when you were born?" He nodded. "Of course, Mama. You said it would grow tall and strong, just like me." She smiled weakly. "Yes, and now it stands taller than both of us. That's where I want to rest." His eyes widened. "Mama, please!" She placed a hand on his arm, silencing him. "Promise me, my son. Promise me you won't run anymore. Not from love, not from pain, not from where you came from." Michael's voice cracked. "I promise, Mama. I'll stay." She looked at him, her eyes calm. "Good. Then I can sleep." Scene 2. The passing. That night, the sky was clear. The stars glittered like scattered tears across the heavens. Michael sat by her bedside, watching her chest rise and fall, each breath shallower than the last. He held her hand, his thumb tracing the lines of her palm, the same hand that once held his when he took his first steps. Her lips moved softly. "Sing for me, Michael." He blinked. "Sing?" She nodded faintly. "That song I taught you when you were little." He hesitated, his voice trembling as he began to hum the old village lullaby. The melody wavered, but the love behind it was pure. Mama Grace smiled. "You remembered." Her breathing slowed. Then, with one last gentle sigh, she whispered, "I'm proud of you, my son." And the world grew still. Michael froze, waiting for the next breath. But it never came. The candle flickered beside her bed, its flame bending as if bowing in farewell. He laid his head on her chest, whispering, "Don't leave me, Mama. Please." But her body was quiet, and for the first time in his life, Michael felt what true loss meant. Not just the absence of someone, but the ache of everything left unsaid. Scene 3. The burial. The next morning, the village gathered. The people came, the same ones who had once gossiped about him, who had whispered about his pride. But today, there was no judgment in their eyes, only sorrow. They helped him carry her coffin. A simple wooden box, adorned with flowers from the garden she loved. The walk to the mango tree was slow and silent. The breeze rustled the leaves above as though the heavens themselves were mourning. As they lowered her into the ground, Michael's heart clenched. His hands trembled as he picked up a handful of soil. He whispered, "Rest here, Mama. You are home. And so am I." He let the earth fall gently onto her coffin. The sound was soft but final. The closing of a chapter that had begun with his leaving and ended with his return. Auntie Nuru placed a hand on his shoulder. "She was waiting for this day, my son, the day you'd find your way back." He nodded silently, unable to speak. Scene 4. The transformation days turned into weeks. Each morning, Michael visited the grave beneath the mango tree. He would sit for hours, talking to her, telling her about his plans, his regrets, his gratitude. He cleaned her resting place, watered the flowers, and rebuilt the fence around the small garden she had loved. The villagers began to see a change in him. The arrogance that once clouded his face was gone. Now his eyes carried something else: peace humility, and strength born from pain. He began helping around the community, fixing roofs, teaching children, and sitting with the elders who had once watched him grow. The children often followed him to the tree, asking, "Uncle Michael, why do you come here every day?" He would smile softly and say, "Because this is where I learned what love truly means." One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky in gold, Michael stood beneath the mango tree, holding a small notebook, Mama Grace's prayer journal. He read one final entry she had written weeks before he came home. "If my son ever returns, I will thank God, not for bringing him back to me, but for bringing him back to himself." He closed the book and looked up at the sky, the wind whispering through the branches. He smiled through his tears. "I'm back, Mama," he said quietly. "I found myself. Because of you." The mango leaves rustled gently, as if answering his heart. The morning sun rose gently over the village, spreading light across the mango tree where Mama Grace rested. The air was soft, calm, the kind of peace that felt earned. Michael stood there quietly, holding a cup of tea. It was a habit now. Every morning, he came to sit under the tree and greet her, just as he once rushed past her without a word. He looked up at the branches swaying in the wind. The leaves shimmered like green glass, glowing in the sunlight. For a moment, he could almost hear her voice again. Calm, loving, forgiving. Start again, my son. Use what you've learned. Give back what life has given you. And so, he did. Scene 1. A new purpose. In the months that followed his mother's passing, Michael began to rebuild, not just his life, but the village she loved. He sold what little he had left from the city. His watch, his suits, his laptop, and used the money to start something small but meaningful. It began with a single room, a place where children could come to read, learn, and dream. He painted the walls bright yellow and hung a wooden sign above the door that read, Mama Grace Learning Center, where love teaches. At first, only a few children came, shy and curious. But soon, word spread. Parents began to send their sons and daughters, not just to study, but to learn from Michael, the man who had once lost his way and found his heart again. He taught them more than just reading and numbers. He taught them about humility, kindness, and the danger of pride. Sometimes, when a child misbehaved, he would smile and say gently, "Even the proud can learn. I did." Scene 2. Healing the wounds. The villagers, who once whispered about his arrogance, now greeted him with warmth and respect. Elders often came to visit the learning center, bringing baskets of fruits and stories from the past. One afternoon, Auntie Nuru stopped by. She watched the children laughing in the courtyard and said softly, "Your mother would be proud, Michael." He smiled, looking around. "She's still teaching, even now. I just became her student." Auntie Nuru nodded, her eyes misty. "You turned your pain into purpose. That's what love does." As they spoke, a soft breeze swept through the yard, carrying the scent of mango blossoms. Michael looked toward the tree in the distance and whispered under his breath, "I hope you can see this, Mama." Scene 3. The bracelet. That evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills, Michael sat beneath the mango tree, lost in thought. He looked down at his wrist, the same hand-woven bracelet his mother had given him years ago. The threads were old, faded, but still strong. He ran his fingers over it and smiled. It had survived everything: time, distance, pride, and pain. Now it wasn't just a bracelet. It was a reminder of forgiveness, of faith, of love that never dies. He whispered softly, "You were right, Mama. The city gave me things, but this village, this love gave me peace." For a long while, he sat in silence, feeling the wind brush his skin like her gentle hand. Scene 4. The legacy continues. Months turned into a year. The learning center grew, with new benches, books, and a small garden planted by the children themselves. Michael also began mentoring young adults who dreamed of leaving for the city just like he once had. He didn't stop them. He only told them one thing: go chase your dreams, but never forget where your heartbeat learned to sing. He became more than just a teacher. He became a guide, a voice of wisdom born from pain and redemption. On weekends, he would gather the children beneath the mango tree and tell them stories about Mama Grace, how she never gave up on him, how she believed love was stronger than failure. And as he spoke, the children would listen wide-eyed, the sunlight falling on their faces, their laughter blending with the rustling leaves. Scene 5. The closing moment one afternoon. As the golden light filled the sky, Michael sat beneath the mango tree again. In his hands, he held one of Mama Grace's old letters, the one he had once crumpled and thrown away. He had found it and carefully smoothed out every crease. The paper was fragile. The ink faded, but her words were still clear. My son, wherever life takes you, remember, you will never be too far from my prayers. He closed his eyes. Smiling through tears, he folded the letter, placed it against his heart, and whispered, your prayers brought me home, Mama. I finally understand. The wind rustled the branches above, sunlight breaking through the leaves, warm, golden, forgiving. Children ran past him, laughing, their voices echoing through the fields. Michael looked at them and smiled. Not the smile of a man who had succeeded, but of one who had found peace. He turned his gaze toward the horizon, where the sun melted into the sky. Thank you, Mama, he whispered. I'm finally home. The camera of life lingered on the image. A man sitting beneath a mango tree, surrounded by laughter, sunlight, and the quiet beauty of redemption. And above him, the leaves danced gently, as though Mama Grace herself was smiling down, proud of the son she had never stopped believing in.